Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey guys, it's Adam here. As I'm sure a lot of you know, based on recent videos I've done, I took a trip up to Toronto. Wow, it was a couple of weeks ago now at the time this video is coming out. And I hung out with those two guys who just walked by. That was Pete Diak, the first one, and the second one was Scott the Canadian. Yeah, I was up in Toronto to primarily check out the Waterloo video game swap, which is run by Pete Diak. But we also decided to all take a trip down to Chicago. They came to hang out with me. And so what we did was, after we checked out a couple of game stores in the Toronto area, some of which I did videos on, we drove down to Windsor. Now, Windsor, for everyone else in the world, is the Canadian side of the Detroit-Michigan border. So one side of the river is Detroit, Michigan. The other side is Windsor, Ontario. So that's pretty much the end of their country right there. So we stopped, and there's a couple of game stores in that area. And this is one of them called a Game Cycle. Now, I just wanted to give you guys a look at it. Now, you've already seen a lot of stuff like DS stuff and all sorts of other things. But they have a large selection of Wii games, as you can see here. And there was that creepy mannequin you saw at the beginning. That really, when we walked in the store, that really threw us off. We're like, oh, Jesus, what is that? We just weren't expecting it. Yeah, lots of Wii stuff here. As well as now over here we got PlayStation 2. Nice healthy selection of that. Now I was primarily in there looking for original Xbox games, and you'll see my pickups near the end of the video, but I think I did pretty well. But yeah, lots of PlayStation 2 here. Also a lot of miscellaneous items, like you can see here on the left. They got a lot of different plushies. They have a lot of things like game cases there, cases for taking around your consoles or taking around your handhelds, etc. Some PlayStation 3, some Wii U happening over here, as well as more Wii. Some random figures from Rabbids, the Ubisoft franchise. I don't remember ever seeing toys for that, but apparently they exist. More PlayStation 3 here. Yeah, more PlayStation 3. You kind of getting a sense of how this works. This store had had their inventory very spaced out. It's hard to say that they actually had like a ton of inventory. I think it's just that they had very, very adequate shelving to house what they actually have. Kind of gives the impression that there's a lot more of it than there might actually be. There was some PlayStation 4 there, as well as Xbox 360. It's kind of weird. The way they lay this out actually kind of reminds me of Blockbuster. Geez, it's weird to think this way, but if any of you are old enough to remember going into a Blockbuster to rent a game, it was very spaced out like this. And they would have the game on front, and then they would have like the rental thing you would grab in the back. Most game stores do it like this shelf right here, where it's just kind of all tightly packed together. Not so much like this, like you're seeing here. But I'm glad they do that. It was kind of a nostalgia trip. And of course, that's a lot of original Xbox there. Look at all those copies of Tai 3. That's not a common game. It's not rare, because again, it's the original Xbox. Almost nothing on it is. But it's not one you see with that kind of volume, man. Like, usually that's reserved for like 2K sports stuff. So that was just kind of interesting to see. A lot more 360 over here. If you're an American, I don't know if you would care about this. It kind of bugs me, but be aware if you're going to buy stuff in Canada. A lot of the stuff has both English and French on it, which is nothing wrong with the French language, of course. It just kind of throws you if it's in your collection. The most egregious offender of this is the Orange Box collection for the Xbox 360. Take a look at the American spine versus the Canadian spine. I know a lot of Canadians who think it was such an ugly spine because of all the French they had to put on it, that they a lot of people just imported American copies. But yeah, so personally, I only try to buy the stuff that would look the same if I were to buy it in the States. So a lot more plushies there, some random Genesis stuff, Sega Saturn stuff, Sega CD, TurboGrafx 16, Dreamcast. Also a lot of DVDs over there. This is a nice section. I'm glad when stores do this. They just kind of they have basically manuals you can flip through to see if you need to complete a manual collection there. Bunch of random stuff like that. Loose like disc-only games, etc. A lot of DS here. They also, you might have noticed, they put in a lot of the 70s stuff, like the Atari 2600 stuff's all over there. Then, of course, they have your high-end games, the ones people will be looking more likely to get. random DVD collections and items that, again, people are kind of looking for. More of the maybe some sealed Dreamcast, because there was a sports game in there. I bet it was just sealed. NFL 2K1, certainly not a valuable game. Yeah, look at that. Lots of DS stuff there. I believe that's all like Skylanders and Disney Infinity toys. A lot of PlayStation 1 there. A lot of the more uncommon PlayStation 2 God Hand right there. I was really tempted to pick that up, but I didn't end up wanting really to pay that much for it, so I didn't do it. They had consoles here. They had a boxed Wii U. All sorts of just cool stuff. I think that was mostly sealed games. A lot of accessories up on the wall. More DS. You'll have to forgive the odd camera work in this particular section. I was trying to avoid this guy. I don't think wanted to be on camera, so I was just kind of weaving around him there. But yeah, more accessories. And there's Pete Diak right there doing stuff on his phone. Yeah, exactly. That's Pete right there in a nutshell. Very nice guy, though. GameCube selection. As always, it's very nice to see a good GameCube selection. You don't get to see that often. Usually GameCube selections are limited to a handful of titles these days. Imported N64, some Super Famicom, there's some Jaguar in there. Lots of Game Boy games. Nice to see. Boxed N64, loose N64. What else we got here? We got NES in those little sandwich wrap things that kind of help keep the cards clean, and just more random Super Nintendo and other miscellaneous game items. So yeah, that's a quick look at Game Cycle in Windsor, Ontario. And there's Scott the Canadian. He approves. So that store, we checked it out. There's actually two of those stores. They're like just down the street from each other. Now the one you saw is the bigger store. We ended up hitting up both, but I only ultimately did that video, or at least shot that footage of the first store. But I did actually pick something up from the second store, so I'll show you that. But the second store was just smaller and didn't have as much inventory, so I really didn't feel like I could have just turned the camera on and done like a quick whip pan, and you would have seen the whole thing. So I didn't bother. But if you do decide to go out that area, like I said, there's two of them down the street from each other. So here's everything I picked up from those two stores combined. The first thing was Majin and the Forsaken Kingdom for the Xbox 360. Now, I've never seen this game before, which is why it caught my attention. But at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of Xbox 360 games I've never played or heard before. But it was cheap. I don't know. It just kind of caught my attention, so I was like, what the hell, I'll pick it up. Next up, for the original Xbox, I got Scalar, which is a 3D platformer. I love 3D platformers. I love platformers in general, and I really miss that. You know, like I miss that random IPs of new characters could just show up and you could just have a game like this happen. That doesn't happen that much anymore, at least with console games anyway. So there you go, very cool. This was fun. Cabela's Big Game Hunter 2005 Adventures. The reason this was fun is one thing that's cool about those two stores is they build tax right into the price of their asking price. Now, if you're like European, that's probably normal to you. But in North America, we don't do that. Whatever it says doesn't account for tax most of the time. So this store actually was doing that. So they were asking literally $1 Canadian, including tax, for this game. With the exchange rate, that's about 75 cents US. So that's like 3 American quarters to pick up this game. No problem. Nice to get off the list for 75 cents. Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, basically the same deal. You know, because again, with the current exchange rate on all this stuff, from an American perspective, a lot of this stuff is much cheaper than it usually is, because the exchange rate right now is about 75, 76 cents to $1. So in my favor, not in the Canadian favor. So there you go. And this was the one pickup I got from the second smaller store, MotoGP 2. Again, this was literally $1 Canadian, 75 cents or so US. Awesome. And finally, probably the best one to pick up was Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. This game's interesting because at the time I make this video, this was recently featured on Kotaku because it was just an odd release that they thought should have had more light on it. What this game is basically Activision took the Tony Hawk engine for skateboarding games and basically put Disney characters in it. So it's just an interesting game. Released on the PlayStation 2 and released on the GameCube as well. I've always wanted the Xbox version, you know, for the collection, but it's not a game I come across very often. And usually when I do, I mean, generally the original owners were kids, and it was just beat to shit. Manuals destroyed, sun faded, or disc is damaged, or whatever. But or the price is too high, etc. In this case, it was the perfect combo. I believe it was $7 Canadian. Had the manuals, all good shape. So that was totally worth picking up. Again, $7 Canadian, maybe like $4.50, $5 US. I'd pay that. That was fine. So there you go. But yeah, that was my short but sweet pickups at Game Cycle in Windsor, Ontario. If you're ever in the area, feel free to check both of them out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.